You're watching Poland Daily Business, and our guest tonight is Dr. Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University. Sir, welcome to the show.
Hello.
And the topic right now in the Polish and European policy is how to deal with the crisis in Belarus. We see the democracy crackdown, we see the forced election, and obviously everyone is looking to keep the Belarus in the larger European sphere. The Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki said that we will provide the Belarus with the Marshall Plan. That means money and access to European markets. Will that be sufficient? And first of all, what are the ways that we can help Belarus in the economic aspect?
I don't think it will be sufficient. It's very honorable to help and to think about Belarusians as our brothers, and we want them to be in this European sphere of influence and maybe in the future as part of the European Union. But let's remember that it's not to Belarusians to decide about their future, because they are very much dependent or in the sphere of Russian influence. And everything will depend on what President Putin will decide. Unfortunately, I would like the reality to be different, but this is the reality. So I believe that the future of Belarus is in the hands of Putin and maybe President Trump or the new president in the White House after November 3rd or after the elections. And probably it will be decided on that level what will happen to Belarus, whether it will be allowed to construct its own democratic society and civil society and democratic institutions without Russian control, or they will be still part of Russia. Let's keep in mind that Russia did not allow for complete freedom in Ukraine. They intervened a few years ago in Armenia. They controlled the situation in Kyrgyzstan 10 years ago. And they will control the situation in Belarus, because in Belarus, for example, are located extremely important strategic military installations of Russia. For example, in Hancevice, there is a radar, and in Vileika, for example, there is a naval communication center allowing to communicate Russian submarines with Russia on Indian Ocean, for example, in the Mediterranean. In one airport, the Russians had and stationed its fleet of planes. And also Minsk, or generally this part of Europe, is important strategically for Russia, because it was traditionally a road to Smolensk and to Moscow in 19th century or later during the Second World War. So this is an extremely important fragment of former Soviet Union. And besides that, let's remember that Russia and Belarus has formed the Confederation in 1999, and also they are together in the special agreement which is called the Organization of Security, Military Security. It's a former Tashkent agreement, so that even in case Russia wants and Lukashenko asks Russia for help, they can intervene in Belarus based on one of the articles of this special treaty signed between Belarus, Russia, and several other countries like Armenia or Kazakhstan. So the situation is extremely difficult. Also economically, those two countries are integrated. Belarus is depending on gas and oil from Russia, and also they are integrated in terms of commands. For example, there is one command for missile aspects of the military planning, for example. So it's very difficult to separate those two countries and to convince Putin that he should allow Lukashenko leave, and also he should allow Belarusians to create their country, build their country as they want.
Well, from the television images that we can see from Belarus, we see the completely European country and completely European people that are on the streets. They look just like me and you and every one of our guests and viewers. So the question is there a discrepancy between the regime and their way they view the world and the relationships and the society, that those people are traveling all over the world, that those people know and work in Europe, they have visa-free or almost visa-free access to, for example, Poland and other countries. So this creates a tension. I mean, do you agree with this point that there is a significant tension between the regime and people due to the cultural basis?
Of course, the regime is anachronistic, and even Lukashenko himself, talking to Russian journalists, he said at certain point of the interview that maybe he was at power for too long and maybe it's time to go, I understood. But let's remember that this is a special mentality. And also there are those geopolitical issues which I outlined at the beginning. They are a little bit like Poland in 1980-81. We were ready as society, as just people, to build our democracy and our economy. However, there was no geopolitical factors which would be good for us and were helping us. There was a war in Afghanistan, Cold War, rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, and we had to wait for 9 more years until the Soviet Union collapsed and went bankruptcy. So now there is no maybe geopolitical good time for Belarus. However, we will see, because Russia is now weakening economically very much due to pandemic, COVID-19, due to the drop in the prices of oil and gas. They are reliant in budget on the revenues from this. So that's why maybe, and also there is a problem with Nord Stream, which is very important, vital, existential vital for Putin to be finished. So maybe due to those weaknesses, Putin will be eager to negotiate and to allow Belarus to join this Western sphere of influence in exchange for some economic profits from cooperating with the United States, which is now imposing sanctions on Russia. So I think that the fate of Belarus is in the hands of the President of the United States and the President of Russia. These people will decide about the future of Belarus, like in case of Poland in 1989. But also remember that Belarus is also in very difficult economic shape. 70% of economy is state economy, so it needs transformation, and this transformation will be costly, like in case of Poland, and this is the role for Poland to help guide Belarus and our Belarusian brothers through this turmoils of transformation. We should not allow Western companies to profit from commercialization and privatization of Belarusian economy, because they will be fed up with this a few years from now if we allow for it, and they will ask Putin again to join Russia, because they will be very disillusioned with this wild capitalism which will come to them.
That's a very important point. Sir, thank you very much for this conversation. Artur Wróblewski of Łazarski University was our guest tonight, and that was it for Poland Daily Business. Please watch us tomorrow, same time.